Hey watch friends, today we're going to be taking a look at a very interesting watch from a new micro brand. This is from the brand Timeless, and this is their HMS 002. Before we get started, did want to address administrative matters. This one was sent in for review by Timeless, so this is a review sample here as a loaner to the channel. So if you notice any scratches, scuffs, etc. as we go throughout the review, please do make note of that. Additionally, while we're addressing administrative matters, I would be remiss in not mentioning, if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, I do encourage you to do so. That's a seemingly small gesture, but it means a lot to me, and it really does help the channel so I can continue bringing you more content. So with that, let's go ahead and get into this watch, take a look, see what we think here. First, as far as the packaging, it does come with this nice snap pouch in here, and as you can see, relatively simple in fold over, 2 snaps into place. I don't believe it's going to come with any other accessories, but that's how I received this one here. Getting into the watch itself, first for the basic specs, it does come with a 2-year warranty, so you will have some backing with this one. As far as the specifications, measuring from the 2 o'clock to the 8 o'clock, this one's coming in at 41.5 millimeters. As for the lugs, this is coming with a strap change friendly standard 22 millimeters for the lugs, so even though it's an atypical design, it does still have traditional strap capability, and we'll talk about that more. As for the lug-to-lug, even though it may look large in pictures, it's actually only 47 millimeters. So this is a nice, versatile, small wrist friendly, still with that sizing. But as we'll talk about, it's still plenty big enough for large wrists as well. As for the thickness, this is coming in at 12.9 millimeters on my calipers, and that is including this domed sapphire crystal. Which on that topic, as I just mentioned there, this is a domed sapphire crystal, and you can see that nice dome there. And this does have an inner AR coating. As for the movement, this one's going to be coming with an STP-1-11, which if you're not familiar with that particular model, that is basically a clone of like an ETA 2824. Along with that, you are going to have all of your basic functions you'd expect. It's going to be a high beat movement for it. It does have hacking, does have hand winding. It has approximately a 44-hour power reserve. So it's a pretty well-equipped movement overall. As many of you probably already are familiar with the 2824, you know a lot of those specs. For water resistance, this one is going to come with 50 meters of water resistance or 5 atmospheres. So I'd say good for splash resistance and those kind of things. Certainly not one that I would jump into a pool with, but the style isn't really conducive of that anyways. As for weight, on this included strap here, this is only coming in at 87.9 grams, and that is with a stainless steel case and different specs that we'll talk about throughout here. But a relatively light weight for this overall. Certainly not the lightest we've ever had on camera here, but it's definitely one that is very comfortable, very light on the wrist. It still has that fairly stout feel to it overall, but without weighing you down. All right, now that we have the basic information out of the way, let's go ahead and look a little deeper into the specific one. First, the colors. This one is available in 2 different colors. There's one that's going to have a white perimeter, and then of course the one we're looking at today, which has a gray or a dark charcoal color perimeter. They're actually technically 2 different model numbers, an HMS 001 for the white perimeter, and then the HMS 002 that we're looking at today. But I consider them to be basically the same model, just 2 different colors. Transitioning over to the actual dial itself, one of the things that you're immediately going to be struck with on this, of course, not only the badging, but really that radiating guilloche. That pattern, to me, is absolutely gorgeous. I like the way it has a lot of light play that goes on with it, as the pattern does really transition from the inner perimeter closest to that open heart to the outer perimeter with the edge there. At the outer perimeter, you'll notice that this does have a very pronounced, a deep slope for its rehaut, and it's a very wide rehaut as well. On the rehaut, you're going to notice that you do have an outer perimeter that does show you individual minute and second marks, but additionally it is going to have dual numerals. So you'll have your primary numerals for telling the hour, and then on the outer perimeter you can see smaller where it does have in 5-minute increments of your minute numerals there as well. Looking at the 6 o'clock position, you can see that this one does have a date window, and in the center there you can't help but notice that this does have what I would call somewhat of an open heart. That really exposes the hour wheel on this one, and we'll look at that as we manipulate that around and see how that goes. And then, as we already mentioned, at the 9 o'clock position, you can't help but notice that very pronounced tag that it does have with the branding on that. Shifting over to the hardware, this does have a custom handset, and let's get a better look at that. The handset, you can see, does have skeletonization. I would call it like a keyhole skeletonization. It's a fairly uncommon or atypical style or shape to those hands. Additionally, the hour and minute hand, you'll notice, as is consistent with the theme throughout this, does have accents of rose gold, and that is what I would refer to as a satin finishing for that. The second hand rather is a nice long delicate second hand, and that does have what I would describe as being a polish. It might be a very glossy satin to that, but to me it looks like a polished finish overall. Back to the dial itself, as we already talked about, it does have the dual numerals, and those are going to be printed all the way around. So this does not have any applied indexes on this particular model. Shifting over to the bezel, you can see one of the hallmarks for this bezel is this one. While it does sit flush at the outer perimeter to the case, this actually has a concave shape to it. So you can see as we move around here how that looks, and that really adds some visual difference to that. Additionally, you can't help but notice that this does have ball cuts or ball milling all the way throughout the perimeter there. That really gives this a different look than most of the things that you'll see on the market. Shifting over to the case, you can see that this one does have linear brushing, and that is going horizontally, so the length of the case there as its predominant finish. But you might have noticed it does also have accents of polishing, particularly at the outer perimeter lips there. And then on the bezel itself, it does have a blasted finish as well. So you have nice contrast going all the way around. Additionally, you do have an actual tag badge on the side here as well. In this one you can see is the HMS number 002. So this identifies the branding, and you can see that has a mix of black as well as some polish, and then it does have more rose gold accents with those screws as well. So nice mix there throughout the finish. Shifting over to the lugs, I would describe these as like a horn style. They almost look like the welded style lugs that you would see on a lot of vintage watches. But as I mentioned, this is still a traditional lug design, so this does just attach the straps with spring bars, so these are removable. You can make adjustments there. But I like the way that changes the look overall. I think it is a nice touch. And then, of course, you can see the complementary accent here. One of the things that I would be remiss in not mentioning is not only does this have different finishes, you can see where this has the brush, the bead blasting, as well as the polish that we've talked about. It has stainless steel, it has black touches throughout, but the real thing that I want to point out is all the rose gold accents. You can see the screws on the dial face, the hands on the open heart for the hour wheel there, the date window, but the big thing for this, so all of those are going to be a mix of PVD and otherwise, in the case of like the calendar disc wheel there, that's an accent color. However, on the lugs, this actually is genuine rose gold. So this is rose gold plated here. And specifically, I inquired, and it is 4N is the grade of that, which is, I believe, fairly standard or common for rose gold accents on typically luxury watches that you would see there. So that is a pretty cool touch. And that, as you can see, is highly polished, and you can notice some of the difference in the finish there, whereas most of the other rose gold is going to be a little more of a satin, or in the case of these screws, you do have a good polish. This rose gold does actually take a better polish on it, in my opinion. Shifting over to the crown side, you can see the lugs, as we were talking about there, do have a slight downturn to them. And then transitioning over to the actual crown itself, this crown is coming in at 7.75 millimeters, so 7 3/4 millimeters. So it is a nice stout crown, so it's easy to grab a hold of. Additionally, it does have a deep gear pattern into that. And this is a push-pull design, which let's go ahead and actually pop that out there. And you might have noticed the crown did start to come free. Unfortunately, that is an issue with this individual one. I did contact the brand about it. That is certainly not something that you would expect to have happen, but that is just an issue with this one being passed around. I apologize. It's not going to work here on camera. This ordinarily does work for that one, but I can't get that to stay in. I wanted to show you the open movement going around. This will properly hack and do everything that you would expect there, but of course we're going to have this bobble on camera and trying to capture that footage. For the crown itself, as we mentioned, it is a push-pull design. This does have the sign here for the crown, so you do have that logo going through there. Very intricate, very neat pattern for that. Additionally, it is tricolor, which fits with the overall theme, so you have black on the perimeter there. you do have the stainless and then the rose gold there in the middle. And it does have mixed finishing throughout there with a mix of blasting, brushing, and polish accents for the crown as well. As for the case back, this one does have a screw-in case back. And as you can see, it does have the keyholes here for that screw-in. That's nicely incorporated. And it does carry that pattern forward. So as we had on the crown, is now in the center back of the case back as well. And then it does have on the perimeter here, let's go ahead and spin that around. And you can see what that looks like, in case there's anything you want to check out there. But it does have your basic text. Everything's cleanly applied. It's a relatively basic case back, but I think it's nicely done. The predominant finish is going to be brushing throughout, though it does have some blasting down, particularly in the slots and in the grooves there as well, which adds, again, nice contrast. As for the strap on this, this is coming with a 22mm strap, as consistent with the lugs, and this does taper down at the last hole. On my calipers, it's coming in at 19.5mm. And you might have noticed, nice accent here as well. This does have that contrast stitching on this strap, and it really incorporates, everything is cohesively done. I like the mix of the colors throughout here. As for the strap, this unfortunately is a leather strap, which I say unfortunately because I don't personally use leather, as you may be familiar if you know the channel. However, many of you may like it. And I will tell you, it seems like it's a good quality strap. It is very pliable. I found this to be comfortable on the wrist, but I would certainly be changing it over, and I'll show you some strap options that I personally would think would look great on this. As for the buckle, it does have a nice, smooth, and polished buckle. As you can see, fairly minimalist design. And overall, I found this to be comfortable, not only with the buckle, the strap, as the overall watch itself. Everything about this was comfortable to wear. So with having a better feel for this watch, I wanted to go ahead and bring in a couple comps. And these are the closest that I personally have in my collection. And these are both ones, they're actually the same model. We're going to look at two Zelos Sky Raiders. Size-wise, overall design, as far as the dial shape, the rehaut, all those kind of things, I think these pair fairly well. I wanted to show this blue meteorite here so you can get an idea as to what that looks like. This one's 42, this one's 41.5, but sizing visually, I can't really tell too much of a difference. But that gives you an idea there as far as those differences. And then I wanted to show, since this one has a little bit of an open heart, I wanted to show next to this skeleton Sky Raider as well, so you can get a difference in how that feels for a full true skeleton versus one that just has a little bit of exposed with the gears or the wheel there. So that gives you a better idea as far as the size and characteristic. While we have that out, I did want to mention, as I said I would, a strap option here. This is a Colareb. This is their Eco Suede, which is a microfiber strap. So it's a leather alternative strap that does have that nice suede look to it. I think this would personally, I think it would look fantastic on this watch. I will have, if you're interested in this strap or anything else, I will have Amazon affiliate links in the description. Hugely appreciated if you use those. Whether you purchase this strap or anything else using those links, it actually does potentially get me a small commission and helps out the channel. So that's appreciated. So definitely, if you're interested, do hit that one up. All right, so hopefully that gives you a better idea and feel for what this looks like, some of the comps for it, some of the overall characteristics. Now let's get into what I personally consider to be the positives, some of the critiques I have, some of the minor little hiccups here, and then the overall summary. First, for the positives. The dial on this one, in my opinion, it's absolutely gorgeous. I think it is very attractively done. It almost reminds me of like a Ming as far as the appearance for this. I like the guilloche in the center. I like the outer perimeter. I think the numerals are well done. I like just the little touch of having the wheel in there. I think the gilt throughout, I think, is extremely well done. I'm not a huge gilt fan a lot of times, though I do personally like rose gold over gold, so I was glad to see that more pinkish hue to this than the yellowish hue of traditional gold. But I think the overall incorporation of how they had all the accents throughout, I think it was very tastefully done, and I think it's a good-looking watch. As for the legibility on this, I think is great. You have your numerals for your hours, and then you also have your minute and seconds on the perimeter there. So whether you want to go by indexes or actually seeing the numbers, it's very easy to quickly get time at a glance. The hands themselves, because of that steep rehaut, I would not mind having both the second and the minute hand a little bit longer, but with limitations here, they're pretty much coming right out to the edge and almost touching as is. So certainly I understand the limitations on that, so I can't really ding them for that piece. The case shape, I think overall, I think this case as a whole, whether it be the bezel, the lugs, all of that, I think it is a unique concept, and it's one that I wasn't as certain about in person, or in pictures rather, but in person, I really do enjoy it. I think it wears nicely on the wrist, and that is with my 6.5-inch wrist. You can see it does fit nicely, it doesn't overhang too much, it still has plenty of dial presence for this for larger wrist, which leads me to, I think it's a versatile size. I think this, whether you have my 6.5-inch wrist, which I do still have a hole or two to spare here, so I think it would go even a little smaller than my wrist, or you have a larger wrist, I think it's going to fit well. And additionally, I think the overall style, I think, is pretty versatile. Whether you're looking more for a casual watch, or alternatively you're looking to go a little more dressy, I do think this will blend to most occasions. The weight, as we already talked about, it is very lightweight, and that is part of what lends this to be very comfortable on the wrist as well. So I like that. As far as the negatives, we already saw, unfortunately, the crown issue that I experienced. I do believe that that's a one-off. The manufacturer was, of course, surprised by that issue. This one, as I mentioned, had been passed around as far as being a review sample, so I do expect that something might have happened along the way there with that issue. So I can't really fault them for that one, but it is something, obviously, we saw here firsthand as to what's going on with that. I think it's just the locking mechanism isn't properly engaging the crown stem. Additionally, on the dial, one of the things when I posted pictures here, and this was one of the first things that caught me too, I do think it would have been a lot cleaner and a lot better without having that timeless branding, whether it went completely clean in more of a Ming style or went with a smaller logo somewhere on there. I do think getting away from that large tag at the 9 o'clock, that would have been something I would have preferred to have seen. But otherwise, I don't think it hugely takes away, but it does throw off kind of the symmetry of the dial on what is otherwise such a striking dial to look at. As for the date, you may or may not have noticed at the 6 o'clock position, it does actually say date below the date. I understand that that's a stylistic choice, but it's one that I would have absolutely preferred to have not had on there. It hasn't really bothered me in regular use, but that is something that it kind of caught me for that. I know what the complication is there. I don't need the date labeling for it. I would have preferred to have lost that, but again, a relatively minor thing. Finally, the biggest thing that we're going to get to is first the movement, the 2824. I'm not a huge 2824 and especially clone fan, so I would have liked to have seen a little higher end movement in a watch of this price, and that is the biggest con or critique for this, for me personally, and I think for many others, is going to be overall price. This one is coming in, converted over to US dollars, this is coming in at roughly $1,575 at current, so at time of recording here, that's the current conversion rate. That's a pretty steep price tag. And some of the ones that we looked at, this Zello Skyraider, excellent watch here. This one's coming in around $1,000. This fully skeletonized 6498 ETA movement here, which you can take your preferences. I personally do prefer the ETA 6498. This one's coming in at $1,500, so it's actually even slightly under this. I understand it has the gold embellishments and those kind of touches for it, but it's a hefty price tag, especially for being a first offering out there. Do I think it's worth it? Honestly, that's a subjective call. I will let you be the judge of that one. You're definitely free to let me know what you think in the comments. For me personally, though, I would have liked to have seen this come in at a little bit of a lighter price point for an initial offering, and especially with a 2824 movement in it. So where does that leave us overall summary? Overall, if you can get past the price, if you aren't too put off by some of the minor critiques that I personally had, I do think this is an attractive watch. I think it's nicely done. I think it's comfortable. I think it works well as a watch, which is kind of imperative here with these. The legibility is great. As we already talked about, I think it fits well for dress or casual use. I think it blends it pretty nicely across those applications. So I do think overall, it's a nicely done watch. It has nice machining. I think it's an impressive first offering from the company. So while there are some things that I would like to see updated here, including somehow getting these to a lower price point, whether it be requiring some changes, even if that meant going from rose gold to just a straight PVD all the way around, I do think that will help to open this up to more buyers out there. But that being said, I'm impressed overall with what I've seen for this first offering from them, and I look forward to seeing more of what they have to come. So I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you did enjoy this, please do hit that like button. And as we already talked about, if you haven't already, please do smash that subscribe button. Finally, as we mentioned, there are Amazon affiliate links down in the description. And if you'd like to find me in another medium, you can find me on Instagram. Thanks for watching.